most countries, the environment has no legal rights. Corporate CEOs and heads of state are not bound by law personally to look after the earth and clean up any mess they've made. Environmental lawyer Polly Higgins is trying to change that.
In April 2010, she proposed to the UN that ecocide, the environmental equivalent of genocide, becomes the 5th international crime against peace. And today she's organised a mock trial at the Supreme Court in London, as if that law has already been ratified. When was the kind of the moment, the light switching on for you, that you decided that this was going to be your path, that you wanted to push this forward?
At the moment, as a lawyer, as a barrister, I just don't have the tools of my trade to do this. Today what we're seeing here is, for the first time, barristers have these tools to use in court, and that's hugely important.
So this is not a case of just corporate bashing?
No, not at all. This is really a legislation that's about putting in place a law that creates a kind of think before you act mechanism.
It may be a mock trial, but the cases are based on real events and nothing is scripted. Eminent human rights barrister Michael Mansfield will lead the prosecution against the chief executives of 2 fictional energy companies, while a real jury must ultimately decide if the alleged crimes constitute ecocide and if the CEOs are to blame. Today, the trial concerns the ongoing ecological damage caused by surface mining at the Athabasca tar sands in Canada, and the massive oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, which flowed for 4 months in 2010.
There are some crimes that are regarded as so serious by the international community that they've been made international crimes. Companies cannot be given a license to spill and kill, provided they clear up the mess. That's what this is about. Strict liability and accountability.
It's amazing, you can really feel the gravitas in the case. At one point, the jury were actually dismissed for a few minutes. And could you explain what was happening there?
That was a legal issue that was raised by the defence, the interpretation of the Ecocide Act that's been drafted. Now, that was dismissed by the judge. It was an interpretation of what constitutes a superior responsibility.
Superior responsibility is the principal doctrine of Polly's proposed act, which would hold the heads of corporations personally accountable for any environmental damage committed by their company.
Well, it's really interesting seeing this being put into effect, and it's a really good idea to do a mock trial, to have 2 people sitting there who will, if this act is ever brought into force, be the individuals who are sitting there responsible and answering for the crimes that they've alleged to have committed. Ultimately, ecocide is a crime, and crimes are committed by individuals, not companies.
Back in the court, the defence turn up the heat on a prosecution witness.
Until a day or 2 ago, your knowledge of tar sands extraction was virtually non-existent.
That's correct, yes.
Can you help us?
No, I can't help you on that.
I really don't know. This could be acquittals, it could be convictions. I have no real strong sense.
After an hour of speculation outside the court, we're called back in to hear the final verdict.
Foreman, please stand. Do you find Mr. Bannerman guilty or not guilty of count 2?
Guilty.
Do you find Mr. Tent guilty or not guilty of count 3?
Guilty.
What number convicted and what number acquitted?
The decision was unanimous.
That was amazing. You weren't sure. You weren't sure which way.
It's about ensuring that we all understand the principles. And I think even Polly will say she's got to go back to the Act, as we all have, tighten it up, and make sure that when it is accepted by the United Nations, it'll stick.
I don't actually want to see lots of CEOs in the dock. I'm not anti-profit, not at all. But I am anti-profit that's coming out of vast damage and destruction, the likes of which is being examined today. Hopefully, this is the beginning of the end.